Assalamualaikum. I'm back with second part on the doctrine of binding judicial precedents. We have seen just now the three era of the court system, which is pre-1985, between 1985 to 1994, and post-1994. Okay. All of you can look through the video again on the structure of the court system. But what I'm going to look through today and continually on the, I'm going to continue on the, on the present hierarchy of the court system in Malaysia. As you can see, there's Federal Court, High Court, and the lowest is inferior court, which is sessions court and magistrates courts. Now, those again, let me remind you, Federal Court, High Court, and Court of Appeal are all superior courts, and those low ones are inferior courts or lower courts, which is sessions courts and magistrates courts. Now, how do we apply this doctrine of binding judicial precedents or doctrine of stare decisis in Malaysia? This is by two way, which is vertical, the superior courts in Malaysia. Okay, so basically those inferior courts, they cannot make precedent. Okay, they only follow what has been decided by Court of Appeal, by the Federal Court, by the High Courts. That one is vertical, meaning you follow from below, you follow the higher ranking. Compared to horizontal, we are talking about the courts of the same level. Okay, certain courts are bound by their own previous decision. Okay, for example, High Courts in Malaya, High Courts in Malaya, they are not basically, they don't really have to follow other previous courts. They don't really have to follow High Courts in Sabah, does not have to follow the High Courts in Malaya. However, okay, if we look into this doctrine by doctrine of stare decisis, basically their courts, they are bound by their own decision. Okay, and the decision by the high courts are binding on all subordinate courts. So the question is whether a judge of high court is bound by decision made by another high court judge. So position was initially uncertain. So basically, because they find it, they compelled, the judges felt compelled to follow decision made by another court, while some of them declined. So after so much of uncertainty, there was a decision made by the Federal Court in the case of Sundaralingam and Ramana dan Chetia, reported in 1967, volume 2, MLJ 211, where this is stated that High Court judge cannot overrule the decision of another High Court judge, but he can choose not to follow the decision. Okay, if a decision made by a High Court judge in Johor, a High Court judge in Seremban cannot overrule the High Court judge in Johor. But what they can do is that they can choose not to follow the decision. So basically, subordinate courts are bound by precedents laid down by superior courts, but they are not bound by their own, but their decisions are not bound by any courts. Okay, what about application of this doctrine by the Court of Appeal? Okay, so they are bound by decision above their court. So basically, Court of Appeal Court of Appeal has to follow the decision by the Federal Court. Now, big question mark whether the Court of Appeal is bound by their own previous decision. The court in the case of Kumpulan Perasaan Selangor and Zaid bin Haji Muhammad Noor, reported in 1997, Justice Court of Appeal, which is Gopal Sri Ram, stated that we are bound by our own decision. For like reason, the Court of Appeal is bound by their own decision. Okay. Now, what about doctrine of stare decisis by the Federal Court? Okay, the decision of Federal Court generally is binding on all courts below. So, Court of Appeal has to follow the decision of Federal Court, High Court as well, all these subordinate court as well. Okay, this is decided by the case of Tan Teck Seng and Suruhanjaya Perkhidmatan Pendidikan, reported in 1995. So basically, the Federal Court has opted to follow the practice of Court of Appeal in England. So we're going to summarize it as follows. Court of Appeal is bound by their own decision in civil cases. They are not bound by their own decision in criminal cases. Okay. Federal Court may disregard decision made per incuriam. Okay. So per incuriam means a previous court decision has failed to pay attention to relevant statutory provisions or precedent. Now, in the event there are two conflicting previous decisions, the court may choose which decision to follow. Now, we can see the decision of case of Dalit 1 and PP, where the Federal Court never refused to depart from its own decision, but when appeared right to do so, it should be exercised sparingly. Now, power to depart from its previous decision is indicated when its previous decision was wrong, uncertain, unjust, outmoded, or obsolete in modern context. So, if this occurs, its new decision represents the present law. Okay. Okay. Now, what about decisions of other countries? Basically, a court is not bound by decision of foreign countries. However, they can play an important role in assisting the court, particularly when that particular decision comes from a Commonwealth country that apply the same common law principle. So, most of the time, decisions from India are notable in most of our law, because most of our law model on the law of India, such as Contracts Act. So, we can say that decisions from other country, particularly from those of Commonwealth country, such decisions are highly persuasive. Okay, I'm going to draw you into this part. Okay, how do we avoid precedent? How do we avoid precedent? We need to say we don't have to follow. So a judge may not wish to apply precedents in certain circumstances. So how can they do that? So there are four methods: distinguishing, overruling, reversing, or disapproving decision. Okay. So what is disapproving? Okay. Sorry. Disapproving. Hang on. Let me just go back. Okay, there's four methods: distinguishing, overruling, reversing, and disapproving. I'll go through the first one, which is distinguishing. So, you distinguish the facts of the case. Okay? You try to depart from previous decision by distinguishing the case on its facts or on the point of law. So basically, this is how you try to depart from this particular doctrine of stare decisis. So any judge can distinguish a precedent on minute details, and the differences sometimes can be illogical. So when you distinguish on the facts, you distinguish on the law. Okay, so basically they do this. Most of the time, they try to avoid some earlier inconvenient decision, because sometimes you find it, I don't want to follow because I don't find it right. However, they try to distinguish on the facts. Now, distinguishing allows judges to develop the law and create exceptions to general rule. Okay, so most students, we know that there's always general rule to the principle, and sometimes exception to such general rule. So most of the time, judges try to distinguish by looking at the facts. Okay, now another method is by overruling. So higher court can overrule the decision made in any earlier case by lower court. For example, Court of Appeal can overrule an earlier high court decision. So overruling, when can it occur? if the previous court did not apply correctly the law. So Court of Appeal can overrule the decision of the High Court if they find that the High Court did not correctly apply the law, or because Court of Appeal considers that the rule of the law contained in the previous case is no longer desirable. So overruling can occur when the higher court overrule the decisions of the lower courts. For example, Federal Court can overrule the decision of the Court of Appeal. Court of Appeal can overrule the decision of the High Court. So overruling means proving the previous case was wrong and therefore changing the leading case in the aspects of law. Okay, however, decision in the previous case is not actually changed by itself. Overruling can only be done by a court with authority to overrule. So you cannot reverse, so only the higher one can overrule the lower ones. However, if you look at another part, overruling can also be criticized on the ground that the lawmaking should be left to the Parliament and not done by the judges. But as you know, Parliament will take some time before it can come to its decision, to the making of its legislation. So the easiest way is for the judge to overrule. Okay, so it's also another way of correcting mistakes made by the lower courts. Now, another method of departing from this doctrine is through reversing. Basically, overturning an appeal by a higher court or decision of the courts below. So basically, appeal court will substitute their own decision, right? So this can only be carried out by a court with enough authority, such as the Court of Appeal or the High Court. Right? You reverse, you overturn the appeal. Okay, assuming somebody appealed to the Court of Appeal, only Court of Appeal can overturn the decision. Right? Now, the last one is disapproving precedent. A judge may disapprove of a precedent which are nevertheless bound to apply in the hope that it will be reconsidered. So only Superior Court may disapprove a precedent created by lower courts without actually overruling. So basically, they can just say, we are not going to approve that particular precedence. Okay, so these are the things that you need to know on the doctrine of binding judicial precedents. For further reading, you can look up the book on understanding the Malaysian legal system. Please, for all my students, have a look at the questions on this doctrine of binding legal precedents. Look at page, what is it now? Okay, look at page 73. Okay, look at page 73 for a sample of questions on the doctrine of binding legal precedents. Binding judicial precedents. Okay, that's all on the part of doctrine of binding judicial precedents. I will continue with the next unwritten law, which is customary law, later.